When we got to the outskirts of Algiers, we got a message to tell 20 of us, the operators and the technicians, to join the Texas Rangers at a camp at Guilloville, while the drivers were to proceed with the trucks down to the dock to aboard an American LST. That's a very large tank landing craft like a roll-on ferry. Our camp with the American Rangers was 4 tents at the side of a cork forest. Conditions were very primitive, but we were able to use all the facilities offered to the Rangers nearby. Every morning at dawn we were awakened by the sound of a horse. It was General Eisenhower, Ike himself, riding on his white horse, that came every morning to see that if we were okay and to make sure that we were well looked after in the Rangers camp. What a contrast to our commanding officer. He chatted with us freely, most friendly, and each time he rode away he promised to see us the next day just to check on our welfare. He was such a sincere, pleasant and a great leader. No wonder all his men loved him. We did. Early one morning we were awakened by a US military band. We asked a soldier on guard near us, and he told us there was going to be a medal presentation by 4 generals to the men in the Battle of Kasserine. We noticed a large table with 4 chairs and a flagpole were placed near the gap in the trees. The guard said the generals Patton, Teddy Roosevelt, Terry Allen and Mark Clark would give the medals, and Ike, General Eisenhower, would come along later. Not being a military person, I thought I'd like to get their autographs to send home. My pals, Sergeant Benny and Ted, agreed, and George Howard, our corporal, said he would march us out. He was an ex-soldier and he knew his drill. We borrowed a few clothes. I only had my shorts, so I had to borrow a shirt. We marched out, approached the generals, saluted them. Patton swore. "Jesus Christ, what the hell's this?" snarled Patton. I marched up and I said, "Sirs, we are members of the Royal Air Force, and it's a great privilege to be here to see the presentation of these medals for bravery at the Battle of Kasserine. And please can we have your autographs?" Well, General Roosevelt and Terry Allen were highly amused at our audacity, and they signed, but Patton snarled and said no. Clark, the snooty superior, said no as well. We saluted and off we marched. We could hear Patton still swearing and fuming with rage at these goddamn limeys. That was his speciality. Next day, trucks came along to take us, to collect us to our convoy to get a dress ready for the invasion, battle dress, tin hats and guns from the convoy. Then we went on to the Joseph T. Dickman, a very large troop transporter, along with the Texas Rangers ready for the invasion. The convoy was ready to board the landing craft. Benny and I and 20 of the blokes, the technicians and operators, and thousands of American soldiers were on the Joseph T. Dickman. It sailed off for a few miles away from the docks to a small fishing port called Zeralda for a practice landing. We were never told this. The next morning, rope ladders were lowered at the side of the boat to take us down into small barges, little landing craft, to go to the beach. Well, it was a beautiful morning, lovely sunshine, the Mediterranean was like a mill pond, and the practice landing was just like a complicated paddle. We went along with the second wave of soldiers as we waded ashore to a deserted town. As we got ashore, a jeep drove up with some American MPs. Very agitated they were. They came to Benny and I to ask if we'd help them. We wondered what we could do. They said they got to round up the first wave of soldiers who vanished down the side streets into the cafes, the bars and the brothels, instead of going onto the trucks to go back to the docks in Algiers. The MPs gave Benny and I American armbands, an American MP helmet and a belt with revolvers and bullets. Then they persuaded us to help them to round up the soldiers. With guns blazing and much shouting and yelling, we got all the soldiers back into their trucks. Our men in the meanwhile watched all this, sitting on the seawall with great amusement. Then our truck came to take us back to the Dickman. This incident has not been recorded in any of the American records. After several days at sea in a severe storm west of Malta, the invasion fleet of about 1,000 ships arrived off the coast of Sicily for the invasion of Europe. The Dickman anchored 10 miles off the coast in complete darkness with torrential rain and stormy winds. At midnight we were woken up and told to report to our rope ladders with full kit and guns. As we reached the ropes on the edge of the deck, over the side we watched the wet rope moving up and down in the waves. We could see our little barge bobbing up and down as well in the sea 20 feet below us. It was right to the bottom of the rope ladder and then fall away 6 feet below in the heavy swell. With my Sten gun over my shoulder, I went down with the first of our men and waited until the barge came up, then jumped clear of the Dickman to land on the cold, wet floor of the barge, then got up to give the rest of the gang a hand as they came down the rope ladder. Once aboard, we sailed in terrible seas to the coast. We couldn't see, the waves were so high. Dougie, a family man from Nottingham who never swore, said, "I don't like this war one little bit." We had a terrible trip towards the beach on the open barge, the small assault landing craft. The rough seas made everybody sick. We were soaked to the skin, cold and miserable. When we got near to the beach, the German snipers were shooting at us. Bullets were pinging off the steel sides. And the US soldier in charge, he said, "Right, this is it, everybody out." Nick, my technician friend, and I were the first down the ramp into about 6 feet of rough water. I held my Sten gun up high to keep it dry and started to move towards the beach. I turned round to look for Nick, but he wasn't tall. He was completely covered up, moving around in little circles but still on his feet. I grabbed hold of a brown shape underneath the sea, it was his shoulder, and dragged him with me towards the shallower water and the sandy beach, still being shot at. When we got to the sand, we walked up, or ran up, to the shelter of a seawall, Nick still spluttering and coughing up seawater. The others followed as the barge had been blown by the wind nearer to the beach. I could see where the snipers were and fired a whole clip of Sten gun bullets at them, but the range was too great. Wondering what to do, I saw an American soldier come up and said, "What's the matter, Limey?" He was carrying an anti-tank rifle with a heavy explosive bullet. We tricked the snipers into giving their position away when I poked my tin hat above the top of the wall. The American soldier saw the flash of their guns and fired a shot and destroyed the snipers. We walked up the narrow road, stepping over the dead German soldiers that had just been killed an hour earlier by the first attack. We left the road and gathered round a German anti-aircraft gun at the edge of a minefield to rest and have a dry out. We were being strafed by German fighter planes all this time. We had to dig slit trenches in the sand. I'm afraid this disturbed sand fleas, which began to bite me. I was so badly bitten, I went down to the sea again, up to my neck, as the salt water would kill the fleas. As American soldiers came ashore, they shouted, "A crazy Limey, a crazy Limey." They came off the barges from the Dickman, but we were all safe and sound on dry land in Europe for the first time.